How's it? I absolutely adore slow motion images, blurry, ghost like photographs that are often very secretive because we can't see them with our eyes. I think this fascination with slow shutter speeds, about emotion, about movement, and what have you, comes from books similar like this. This is the Disney Wonderful World of Knowledge. It's a set of encyclopedias that I had when I was a kid. And in the back here, if I can find the space, I do have a bookmark, but it's one of those titchy things, is this picture of a rodeo rider. It's all blurry and it's a chaos of movement and light and form. Now, there's no credit on here, unfortunately, but I'm going to guess this feels like it's a Ernst Haas kind of photograph. I remember seeing this image and thinking, wow, that just summed up visually all the movement, the chaotic surge of energy that a rodeo has. It put into words through the image far better that feeling of what a rodeo is about at its heart than, well, a set of words could ever do. To my young eyes, that was all I needed to see, was all that blurry motion stuff. And of course, you could sit at a million rodeo dodos. You could sit at a million rodeos and you can't see that. You cannot see that with your eyes. That blurriness, that motion, that movement that Ernst Haas and so many other people were bringing to their photography, you cannot see with your eyes. That's the beauty of this. We've been talking a lot recently on the community about ICM. So November is ICM month. And one of the topics that's come up is that when people take photographs that have this blurry motion, that do have longer shutter speeds, and we kind of start leaning into this place where the camera can go and we can't with our eyes, there's, some people go, oh, it's you just have long exposure and that's enough. But of course it isn't really enough just to randomly have a long shutter speed and see what happens. There needs to be some sort of purpose to it. So I'm going to look at a couple of photographers today to hopefully give you avenues to explore, to be inspired by, as you tap into this kind of secretive world of photography that goes beyond what we can see with our eyes. So there's all those people, they're sitting there going, oh, it's just a long exposure, and then it's art. But you need to have, I think, with you having a long exposure, something for the eye to grab onto. Otherwise, it's just a chaotic mess. I mean, I've been trying long exposures recently with my iPhone, and the ones that fail completely are where it's just, I'm just jumping around and sort of seeing what randomly happens. But there's a chap here called Hal Eastman. And he's got this book here called Natural Dance, which I bought ages ago. So one of those kind of like super cheap books that Amazon seem to get rid of from time to time. And I love it because it's all these long exposures, much in the vein of Ernst Haas, where he's got, maybe exposures of half a second, maybe 2 or 3 seconds. But he's tied it in with dances. Now, unfortunately, Hal doesn't have much work up online. It's going to be a bit tricky to show you some of these. But the point of all of that is that there is a focus. He is focused on the dancer. There is a point of contact for our eye to look at and go, I find something I sort of recognize within the chaos, much like the rodeo horse rider. You can recognize bits. And he's gone out there and he's finding places, like this is the picture from the cover. Hopefully you can see it, where there is blur, but it's controlled. It's controlled movement. We get the feeling, the sense of the dance, of the wispiness as that person spins around. I tried to do this with some of my studio photography to introduce a feeling of motion, of movement, but at the same time keep it focused, keep it in control. I found that when I go and use the Rehold app on my phone, that if it is a very strong element, there's strong static elements within the frame, that makes that photograph far stronger. So if you're looking to explore ICM, then I would suggest that you find a place where there are very strong elements that are going to be static, something static within the image that gives our eyes something to grab onto. Now, if you go to the extreme of long exposures, very interesting things happen. I think this is one of the beauties is you find technical things going on that you're not expecting to happen. And this is a chap called Chris McCall. This is his book, Sunburn. And this book I came across from Ted Forbes on the art of photography. He talked about it. And what Chris does is he has these very, very long exposures. And I know it's always difficult to show pictures, right? But what happens is that the sun itself physically burns a hole in the emulsion on the film. I was just like, wow, that is crazy. And just look at these things. That's amazing. I would never have considered that you could take such long exposures during the day. I mean, obviously you'd have to have multiple neutral density filters and all sorts of things like that. But also the sun would physically burn the emulsion. That's a secret photograph. That's something that I don't think anybody could have expected if you sat them down with a camera and say, what are the possibilities? What are the potential uses of your camera? Is to take the lens and burn holes in the film. But that's the beauty of photography. It's all about experimentation, about trying things out. It's one thing to be sitting there and go, oh, I've got the technical aspects down, I've got a sharp image, because I get that. I understand that approach is, well, it's comforting. Because it's like, the Victorian people, when they're getting started with photography, just the mere fact that they registered an image on some plates and silver and all this kind of stuff, they were like, wow, this is pretty cool. And we want to replicate what we see, what's around us. But the more and the more that I think about, blurring the lines between the physical reality of what I see and the what the camera can create, the more I get so enthusiastic about it. I mean, listen to me, I'm getting all carried away here. And, it doesn't have to be all about long shutter speeds and things of that nature. You can tap into those dreamlike qualities. Now, this is Joyce Tennyson. And she's got a number of books, but this is Illuminations. Now, I have to be careful with this one because there are a lot of unclothed people in here, and YouTube has a fit, like a literal fit, if so much as a bosom is shown, or a bum, or anything like that. So I'm just going to flick through very carefully. But you probably can't see because they are quite delicate photographs. But they have a dreamlike, ethereal quality to them. Right? So there's lots of things going on at play. There is, soft focus filters, things of that nature. But there is, in a lot of her work, a bit of motion, a bit of about bringing in lights that shouldn't be there, about painting the images with a ghostly sort of halo, this pallor kind of thing. That's by having the shutter that's open and everything's in darkness, and you bring in another light source and you can paint around the person. I've done a couple of videos like this where I've explored these ideas. That's something that is well within the remit of everybody who's watching this tonight. Take your camera, go and put it on a tripod, set your shutter to bulb or whatever it is that you have, and see what happens when you have the image that's dark. So go somewhere dark where there's no artificial light and take a torch. Paint in a tree, a bit of a road, anything like that. Have fun with it. See what happens. Meld these two things together. Joyce Tennyson's work I love because it is a melding of reality and fantasy. I love Obi Oberharter's older work, where he also does the same thing, but it's painting, bringing the torch and adding stuff in. It's a fascinating way of learning, certainly about how light actually works when it hits your sensor. It's great. We're going to finish off with this chap here, Hiroshi Sugimoto. These are also very long exposures. You can see this is a collection of all of his photography, but that's, you know, very long seascapes that are so long exposures that everything basically just becomes a smear of grays, of grey tones. That's, you know, obviously somewhat similar to Hal Eastman, but it's gone to a longer extreme. The same with Christmas Core. You know, Chris McCaw, he's got those long exposures, but Hiroshi Sugimoto's having a quieter, gentle, long think about just how the tones become, I suppose, an average of everything that's there. Now, I'm flicking through because I'm trying to find some of his, this is Hiroshi Sugimoto's images where he has worked on what he's called, I think it's infinity focus. I will get to them in a second, right? But this is where takes the large camera and he focuses past infinity. Sounds a very weird way of describing it, but everything is intentionally out of focus. Now, a lot of people might just go, well, that's just art nonsense and blah, blah, blah stuff. But it's experimenting. It's finding what's out there. If we challenge these kind of biases that we have about, like, you know, an image needs to be in focus. It needs to have this. It needs to have X, Y, and Z things to be considered to be a photograph. What's out there on the edge? What happens when we say to the camera, okay, look, camera, Mr. Camera, you have your abilities. You have this way of seeing the world that we can't, right? This is what we love about you. Now, I'm going to give you some parameters. I'm going to say, do your own thing. Show me what you can see. Fascinate me with what's out there. Pick up a camera. Ask it to do its thing. Don't try and recreate what you see with your own eyes here. Don't take a picture of your kitchen where there's the table and the car outside and the bench and all that kind of stuff. Take a picture of something you cannot see. Tap into that secret world. Dude, I'm like really excited to so get there and do some of these images and things like that. And I've put up some examples of my kind of ham-fisted approaches. But if you have some ideas, you know, send them in. You know, got my email address, send them through. You know, or better yet, you know, join the community. You know, share your work there. We're doing some ICM stuff, as I said, this month. But anyway, it's been fantastic to chat with you again. I really enjoy these little, you know, natters on the kitchen counter and stuff. And I really hope that they have inspired your photography. But if you want to find out more about, you know, photography that inspires me, Ernst Haas in particular, check out this video over here. Thank you ever so much for watching. It's been awesome to see you. Cheerio, and I'll see you again soon.